Identifying unusual samples. Overview. When analysing data, it's important to identify whether a sample result is consistent with what we would expect from the population. Samples that deviate significantly from the population mean might indicate an unusual occurrence or an underlying issue in the process being studied. And we say might there because, as we've seen with the investigation part of this in sampling part 1, if we have the population mean just here, we've seen that when we take samples, we can end up with samples that are way over here or way over here, although they tend to cluster around the mean. So this can happen just due to variation in sampling and may not indicate an unusual occurrence or an underlying issue. But nevertheless, if you were in quality control and you got this situation, you might want to study further in case it was caused by an unusual occurrence or an underlying issue. Using standard deviations to identify unusual results. The sample mean provides an estimate of the population mean. To determine whether a sample mean is unusual, we can calculate how far it lies from the population mean, provided we know that, in terms of standard deviations. And when I say standard deviations here, we're talking about the sample standard deviation, which is known sometimes as the standard error, which is the population standard deviation divided by root n, a quantity that we've met before. For most data sets, 95% of the sample means will lie within 1.96 standard deviations of the population mean at a 5% significance level. What do I mean by that? So you should have met this in your methods course, where if we have a normal distribution, 95%, that would leave us with 2.5% at each end, and that's what we mean by the 5% significance level. So if you get something out here or out here, it's part of the 5% that don't fit within 1.96 standard deviations of the mean. That 1.96 is just a z-score. It's what you get from a center, like I've drawn here, and using 0.95 in an INVNorm on your calculator. So, a result outside this range is considered unusual, and of course we can set different levels, 5%, 1% and so on, and might warrant further investigation as we mentioned before.